Science and religion are at war. All scientists are atheists. Atheists are the preachers and propagators of science. They are the people of scientific temper. Atheists have contributed a lot to the development of science. They have been working very hard to educate people about the scientific methodology. Science is the ultimate truth, and atheists are the upholders of science. All people should become atheists and contribute to the development and growth of science. Religion has done nothing but stagnate the growth of science and prevent technological progress. So religious people should either be stopped or they should be reformed, as they are the enemies of science. Does this make any sense? Well, it used to make sense, to me at least. I used to actually believe this in my childhood, probably because almost all the scientists who I saw on the television through Discovery Channel, National Geographic, etc., scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Professor Michio Kaku, Bill Nye, Professor Stephen Hawking, etc., were people who were atheists. Well, some of them are agnostics, but they had atheistic mindset. So reasonably, my 12-year-old self thought that science and atheism were interrelated and directly proportional. But the more I delved deep into the history of science, I saw a whole different picture, and I was very astonished by what I saw. I was mind blown. I found that atheists were actually the ones who pulled back science from development, who attacked and killed scientists, who restricted scientific temper. Now please remember this. I'm not talking about those individuals who choose to personally not believe in a God. I'm talking about neo-atheists who come forward with preposterous, baseless, utterly false statements. When they say that atheists were always supportive of science, when they say that atheists were the ones who stood for science, the defenders of science and the propagators of science, I think it's time to look into history and analyze without prejudice or bias to check whether what they say is true or not. When I looked into history of scientific development across various civilizations, I found that almost all the scientists and thinkers in history were in fact not atheists. Atheists were actually the ones who tried to suppress many scientific discoveries. Not only that, even today, many scientists are being oppressed for bringing up scientific arguments that goes against the atheistic discourse. Now, I'm not talking about all atheists, of course not. There are very good intellectual atheist scientists who I respect very much. I have atheist friends. We have very good healthy intellectual discussions very often, but I'm talking about those militant neo-atheists who claim that atheists are the saviors of science and all religions are enemies of science, and hence religion is a virus and should be exterminated from the society. Now, we should keep in mind that some religious institutions have in fact historically suppressed certain scientific discoveries, and there is no justification for it. I completely oppose it. But compared to what atheist institutions have done to attack science, it's very, very little. Let's start with history. The beginning of science and philosophy can be traced back to ancient Greece. The most prominent Greek thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle were people who believed in a higher power. If you look into the development of science and technology, in many civilizations throughout history, like the Indian civilization or the Egyptian civilization or the Chinese civilization, you'll find that those people who led the scientific development were believers in a higher power. If you look into the Islamic civilization, there was a massive development in the scientific paradigm, which were led by Muslim scientists who are also scholars in religion and masters of theology. If you look at the prominent figures in early modern science like Sir Isaac Newton, Johannes Kepler, or Galileo Galilei, almost all believed in some higher power. So the claim that all scientists were atheists who did not believe in the existence of God is just simply literally false and fabricated. So religion was not the enemy of science. So the next question is, were atheists the enemies of science? Let's look into history again without any prejudice or bias. There were some really good atheist scientists who contributed to the development of science. I appreciate that. I thank them for their wonderful work. But also there's another side to the coin. There were many atheists who opposed scientific theories solely because it didn't support their atheistic, materialistic worldview. There were thousands of scientists who were arrested, mentally and physically harassed, exiled, and even shot to death for supporting well-accepted theories like the Big Bang theory, Mendelian genetics, theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, resonance theory, etc. Don't believe me? Well, you shouldn't believe everything you hear, right? Let's look at the proof. In 1931, Georges Henri Lemaitre, an amazing, brilliant scientist, a Christian priest in the Catholic Church, suggested that the evident expansion of the universe in forward time required that the universe contracted backwards in time and would continue to do so until it could contract no further, bringing all the mass of the universe into a singularity, a primeval atom, where and when the fabric of space and time comes into existence. According to this Big Bang cosmological physics model, the universe was originally in an extremely hot and dense state and then expanded rapidly from this point, and has since cooled by expanding to the present diluted state and continues to expand today. The American Chemical Society holds that the Big Bang theory is the most widely accepted scientific model for the beginning of the universe. As a theory which addresses the origins of the universe, the Big Bang has always carried theological implications, most notably the concept of creatio ex nihilo. The perception was enhanced by the fact that the originator of Big Bang theory, Monsignor Georges Henri Lemaitre, was a Roman Catholic Christian clergyman. Due to the strong theological implications of the Big Bang theory, Paul Davies, an English physicist from Arizona State University, has even stated that it may seem bizarre, but in my opinion, science offers a surer path to God than religion. William Bonner, an atheist scientist, rejected the Big Bang theory due to its theological implications, specifically saying that it lent support to divine creation. Similarly, in the light of theistic implications of the Big Bang, Fred Hoyle, an atheist scientist, did not accept the Big Bang. He rather preferred to believe in a model that did not have a single epoch of creation, which would eliminate the need for a creator. As a result, Fred Hoyle, Thomas Gold, and Hermann Bondi developed the steady-state theory, which appealed to atheist cosmologists because it avoided a creation event and the religious implications associated with one. American astrophysicist Edward L. Wright has pointed out many flaws of the steady-state theory continuously for many years. Even though scientific proof pointed towards the Big Bang theory being the best explanation, Fred Hoyle's atheistic dogmatism led him to fight it and build another unscientific theory. So much for scientific temper. Not only that, it gets worse. In 1917, since the establishment of the Soviet Union, science really stagnated. Under the state atheism espoused by the Soviet Union, atheistic communists irrevocably opposed the Big Bang as the origin of the universe, since it contradicted their materialistic worldview. According to the ideology of Soviet communism, as it was formulated in the late 1930s, cosmological models with heat death and hence a finite upper time scale were rejected as well because of their theistic implications. In light of this fact, the Soviet government altered the very definition of science of cosmology in order to support a materialistic worldview. Not only that, Trofim Lysenko, who was a scientist and a prominent figure in Soviet Union, he developed a pseudo-scientific field called Lysenkoism to support the atheistic materialistic narrative. The atheist scientists here worked to establish a view of science acceptable to atheistic communism. Another example of this was the suppression of theory of relativity and quantum mechanics, because there was a problematic relationship between these theories and the Marxist-Leninist philosophy. It was criticized on grounds of contradicting atheistic dialectical materialism. Boris Mikhailovich Hessin, a Jewish physicist, attempted to defend quantum mechanics and relativity but was denounced as a metaphysicist of the worst sort. He was called as pure idealist. He was criticized for paying insufficient attention to the ideas of Engels and Lenin. In the final resolution of the Conference on the State of Soviet Philosophy that was held in 1930, Hessin was censured by name twice. one for his philosophical views on relativity theory, and again for his opinions based on quantum mechanics. On 21st August 1936, Hessen was arrested and falsely charged. On 20th December 1936, Hessen was executed by firing squad. Hessen's promotion of the theory of relativity resulted in his own execution. Another example of this atheistic dogmatism covered up in the name of science is the rejection of the resonance theory. Resonance is the chemical theory by which the actual normal state of a molecule is represented not by a single valence bond structure, but by a combination of several alternative distinct structures. Under state atheism, criticisms of Linus Pauling's resonance theory as well as of Christopher Ingold's chemical mesomerism theory surfaced and gained further scrutiny after the Soviet organic chemist Walter Huckel labeled valence bond resonance hybrid structures as idealistic and imaginary in nature. In 1951, under the Soviet report of the Commission of the Institute of Organic Chemistry of the Academy of Sciences, the theory of resonance was condemned. There are many more examples. Nikolai Vavilov, a very famous Russian scientist, was arrested and starved to death. Shubnikov, Gorsky and Rosenkevich were arrested and shot. Oberov and Lipunsky was arrested. These are just some examples. There are much more. If you wish to learn about this topic, many books are available online on the internet. I would recommend to read The Lysenko Affair, The Lysenko Controversy as a Global Affair, Science in Russia and Soviet Union. These are very good books. You can use them as references. There are also many articles available on the topic online, but please make sure you get information from authentic sources, not from any prejudiced, biased commentaries. This was not only the case in Soviet Russia. If you look at Albania, named as the first atheist state in the world, if you look at Albania, Albania's communist regime outlawed religion and waged a decades-long campaign of repression against Christian and Muslim believers, jailing and executing clerics and persecuting their families. If you look at China, led by Mao Zedong, millions of people were persecuted on the basis of their religion. Any idea that went against atheistic materialism, doesn't matter whether it's scientific or not, were completely prohibited, completely suppressed and oppressed at a massive scale. Well, someone could come and say, look Wafi, the past is past. Atheistic movements have had a complete change. Today's atheists are completely different from the atheists of the past. Well, when you look at the current situation, there are some atheists who still claim that atheists are the torchbearers of science. They are the supporters and promoters of science. Is that true? No, it's wrong. There are clear reports of atheists oppressing many scientists even today. But sadly, it's not even reported. For example, Dr. Richard Sternberg, a well-renowned evolutionary biologist, he published more than 30 articles in peer-reviewed scientific books and publications. He was kicked out while he was serving as an editor of a scientific journal affiliated with the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. Dr. Carolyn Crocker, who is an immunopharmacologist, her career was completely destroyed. Dr. Mike Legno, who is a professor at State University of New York, he was assaulted and had to face socio-political pressure. Professor Robert J. Marks, who is a distinguished professor of engineering at Baylor University, he had his entire research website shut down and he was forced to return the grant money. Dr. Guillermo Gonzalez, who is an astronomer, who is also an assistant professor of astronomy at Iowa State University, despite his amazing research records that has led to the discovery of several planets, his application for tenure was denied, putting his entire career in jeopardy. What were their crimes? The only crime they committed was that they came out with scientific arguments that goes against the current atheist discourse. There are many more unreported cases of oppression. These militant neo-atheists who constantly keeps on saying that they are people of science are either very ignorant about history and what's happening today, or are knowingly hiding this for whatever reason. So dear friends, doesn't matter whether you're atheist, agnostic or theist. Always make sure to not believe everything you hear. Try to research and analyze, dissect and study facts and figures, because we live in a time of misinformation. It's very easy to label and point fingers. that's only going to cause more division in the society. Rather, we need to accept history and work towards a better humanity by making sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes that caused a lot of destruction in the past. Let's learn, unlearn, and relearn.